I am not like the others. Pride is the source and cause of all evil. Sermon by St. John Vianney. I am not like the others. That, my dear brethren, is the usual tone of false virtue, and the attitude of those proud people who, always quite satisfied with themselves, are at all times ready to censure and to criticize the conduct of others. That, too, is the attitude of the rich, who look upon the poor as if they were of a different race or nature from them, and who behave towards them accordingly. Let us go one better, my dear brethren, and admit that it is the attitude of most of the world. There are very few people, even in the lowliest conditions, who do not have a good opinion of themselves. They regard themselves as far superior to their equals, and their detestable pride urges them to believe that they are indeed worth a great deal more than most other people. From this I conclude that pride is the source of all the vices and the cause of all the evils which have occurred and which are still to come in the course of the centuries. We carry our blindness so far that often we even glorify ourselves on account of things which really ought to cover us with confusion. Some derive a great deal of pride because they believe that they have more intelligence than others. Others because they have a few more inches of land or some money, and in fact they should be in dread of the formidable account which God will demand of them one day. Oh, my dear brethren, if only some of them felt the need to say the prayer that St. Augustine addressed to God. My God, teach me to know myself for what I am, and I shall have no need of anything else to cover me with confusion and scorn for myself. We could say that sin is found everywhere, that it accompanies man in what he does and says. It is like a kind of seasoning or flavoring which can be tasted in every portion of a dish. Listen to me for a moment, and you can see this for yourselves. Our Lord gives us an example in the Gospel when he tells us of the Pharisee who went up into the temple to pray, and, standing up where all could see him, said in a loud voice, O God, I give thee thanks that I am not as the rest of men steeped in sin. I spend my life doing good and pleasing you. Herein consists the very nature of the proud man. Instead of thanking God for condescending to make use of him for a good purpose and for giving him grace, he looks upon whatever good he does as something which comes from himself, not from God. Let us go into a few details, and you will see that there are hardly any exceptions to this general sin of pride. The old and the young, the rich and the poor, all suffer from it. Each and every one congratulates himself and flatters himself because of what he is or of what he has done. Or rather, of what he is not and what he does not. Everyone applauds himself, and loves also to be applauded. Everyone rushes to solicit the praises of the rest of the world, and everyone strives to draw them to himself. In this way are the lives of the great majority of people passed. The door by which pride enters with the greatest ease and strength is the door of wealth. Just as soon as someone improves his possessions and his sources of wealth, you will observe him change his mode of life. He will act as Jesus Christ told us the Pharisees liked to act. These people love to be called master, and to have people saluting them. They like the first places. They begin to appear in better clothes. They leave behind their air of simplicity. If you salute them, they will, with difficulty, nod to you without raising their hats. Walking with their heads in the air, they will study to find the finest words for everything. though quite often they do not even know the meaning of the words, and they love to repeat them. In order to show that his wealth has been increased, this man will make your head swim with stories of the legacies he is going to receive. Others are preoccupied with their labors to become highly esteemed and praised. If one of them has succeeded in some undertaking, he will rush to make it known as widely as possible, so that his would-be wisdom and cleverness may be spread far and wide. If another has said something which has gained approval or interest, he will deafen everyone he knows with repetition of it, until they are bored to death and make fun of him. If such vain and boastful people do any traveling at all, you will hear them exaggerating 100 times all that they said and did to such an extent that you feel sorry for the people who have to listen to them. They think that they appear very brilliant, though people are scoffing at them in secret. No one can stop them from talking about themselves. One well-known braggart convinced himself that people believed everything he said. Observe a person of some standing scrutinizing the work of someone else. He will find 100 faults with it, and he will say, "Ah, what can you expect? He does not know any better." But since the proud person never depreciates the merit of someone else without increasing his own importance, he will hurry on then to speak of some work which he has done, which so-and-so has considered so well executed that he has talked about it to many others. Take a young woman who has a shapely figure, or who, at any rate, thinks she has. You see her walking along, picking her steps, full of affection, with a pride which seems colossal enough to reach the clouds. If she has plenty of clothes, she will leave her wardrobe open so that they can be seen. People take pride in their animals and in their households. They take pride in knowing how to go to confession properly, in saying their prayers, in behaving modestly and decorously in church. A mother takes pride from her children. You will hear a landowner whose fields are in better condition than those of his neighbors criticizing these and applauding his own superior knowledge. Or it may be a young man with a watch, or perhaps only the chain, and a couple of coins in his pocket, and you will hear him saying, "I did not know that it was so late," so that people will see him looking at the watch, or will know that he has one. You may observe a man gambling. He may have but 2 coins to spare, but he will have all he possesses in his hand, and sometimes even what is not his. Or, indeed, he will even pretend that he has more than he really has. How many people even borrow, either money or clothes, just to go to places of gambling or other kinds of pleasure? No, my dear brethren, there is nothing that is quite as ridiculous or stupid as to be forever talking about what we have or what we do. Just listen to the father of a family when his children are of age and get married. In all the places and gatherings where he is to be found, you will hear him saying, "I have so many 1,000 francs ready, my business will give me so many thousands," etc. But if later he is asked for a few coppers for the poor, he has nothing. If a tailor or a dressmaker has made a success of a coat or a frock, and someone seeing the wearer pass by says, "That looks very well. I wonder who made it," they will make very sure to observe, "Oh, I made that." Why? So that everyone may know how skillful they are? But if the garment had not been such a success, they would, of course, take good care to say nothing, for fear of being humiliated. The housewives in their own domain do similar things. And I will add this to what I have just said. This sin is even more to be feared in people who put on a good show of piety and religion. Your heart is but a mass of pride. You will tell me, perhaps, that you never judge people except by what you see or after you have actually heard or been the witness of some action. I saw him doing this action, so I am sure. I heard what he said with my own ears. After that, I could not be mistaken. But I shall reply by telling you to begin by entering into your own heart, which is but a mass of pride, wherein everything is dried up. You will find yourself infinitely more guilty than the person whom you are so boldly judging, and you have plenty of room for fear, lest one day you will see him going to heaven while you are being dragged down to hell by the demons. Oh, unfortunate pride, says St. Augustine to us. You dare to judge your brother on the slightest appearance of evil. And how do you know that he has not repented of his fault, and that he is not numbered among God's friends? Take care that he does not take the place which your pride is putting you in great danger of losing. Yes, my dear brethren, all these rash judgments and all these interpretations come only from a person who has a secret pride, who does not know himself, and who dares to wish to know the interior life of his neighbor, something which is known to God alone. If only, my dear children, we were able to arrive at the stage of eradicating this first of the capital sins from our hearts, our neighbor would never do any wrong according to us. We should never amuse ourselves by examining his conduct. We should be content to do nothing else save weep for our own sins and work as hard as we could to correct them. Pride, and when your prayers are only an insult. There are some who derive satisfaction from the virtues they practice because their tendencies are all that way. For example, a mother will pride herself on the fact that she gives some alms, that she frequents the sacraments, that she even reads some spiritual books. Yet she sees without dismay that her children are keeping away from the sacraments. Her children do not make their Easter duty. Yet this mother, from time to time, gives them permission to go to amusements, to dances, to weddings, and sometimes to the winter gatherings. She loves to see her daughters appearing in public. She thinks that if they do not frequent these places of debauchery, no one will know them, and they will not be able to find themselves husbands and homes. Yes, undoubtedly they would be unknown, but only to the libertines. Yes, my dear brethren, they will not find themselves husbands from among those who would treat them like the most wretched slaves. This mother loves to see them well turned out. This mother loves to see them in the company of some young men who are wealthier than they are. After certain prayers and some good works, which certainly she will do, she thinks herself to be on the road to heaven. Carry on, my good mother. You are only a blind hypocrite. You have only the appearance of virtue. You set your mind at rest with the thought that you make some visits to the Blessed Sacrament. Without any doubt that is a good thing. But your daughter is at a dance. But your daughter is at the cabaret with libertines, and they will be spewing out nothing but one kind or another of indecency. But your daughter, tonight, is in a place where she should not be. Go away, blind and abandoned mother. Go out and leave your prayers. Do you not see that you are doing as the Jews did, who bent the knee before Jesus Christ to make a semblance of adoring him? So then, you come to adore God, while your children are out to crucify him. Poor blind creature, you do not know either what you say or what you do. Your prayers are only an insult which you offer to God. Begin by going to find your daughter, who is losing her soul. Then you may return to God to ask Him for your conversion. A father thinks that it is quite enough to maintain good order in his house. He will not have anyone swearing or using obscene words. That is very good. But he has no scruple about allowing his boys to go to amusements, to fairs, and all sorts of pleasures like that. This same father permits work to be done on Sundays on the slightest pretext, even such as not to go against the wishes of his reapers or his threshers. However, you see him in church adoring God, even prostrate before Him. He is trying to avoid the slightest distraction. But tell me, my friends, how do you suppose God can look upon such people as that? Carry on, my poor friend, you are blind. Go and learn your duties, and then you may come to offer your prayers to God. Do you not see that you are doing the work of Pontius Pilate, who recognized Jesus Christ and who yet condemned Him? You will see this other man, who is charitable, who gives alms, who is touched by the poverty of his neighbor. That is quite good. But he allows his children to live in the greatest ignorance. Perhaps they do not even know what they should do in order to be saved. Go along, my poor man. You are blind. Your alms and your sympathy are leading you with great steps straight to hell. Here is another who has plenty of good qualities. He likes to help everyone, but he cannot tolerate his unfortunate wife or his poor children, upon whom he heaps insults and possibly even ill-treats. Carry on, my friend. Your religion is worth nothing. This one thinks that he is quite good because he is not a blasphemer or a thief or even unchaste, but he goes to no trouble at all to correct those thoughts of hatred, of revenge, of envy, and of jealousy, which fill his soul almost every day. My friend, your religion can only ruin you. We see others, too, who are full of pious practices, who become full of scruples at omitting some prayers they usually say. They would think themselves lost if they were not at Holy Communion on certain days when they have the habit of receiving, but trifles make them impatient and grumblers. A mere word which they did not care for will fill them with coldness and dislike. They will have difficulty in being civil to their neighbor. They will want to have nothing to do with him. On different pretexts, they will avoid his company. They will find that someone has been behaving badly in respect of them. Go away, you poor hypocrites. Go and become converted. After that, you may have recourse to the sacraments, which, in your state, without knowing it, you are only profaning with your wrongly understood devotion. Pride is that accursed sin which drove the angels out of paradise and hurled them into hell. This sin began with the world. See, my children, we sin by pride in many ways. A person may be proud in his clothes, in his language, in his gestures, even in his manner of walking. Some persons, when they are in the streets, walk along proudly, and seem to say to people they meet, "Look how tall, how upright I am, how well I walk." Others, when they have done any good action, are never tired of talking about it, and if they fail in anything, they are miserable because they think people will have a bad opinion of them. Others are sorry to be seen with the poor. If they meet with anybody of consequence, they are always seeking the company of the rich. If by chance they are noticed by the great people of the world, they boast and are vain of it. Others take pride in speaking. If they go to see rich people, they consider what they are going to say. They study fine language, and if they make a mistake of a word, they are very much vexed, because they are afraid of being laughed at. But, my children, with a humble person it is not so. Whether he is laughed at or esteemed, or praised or blamed, whether he is honored or despised, whether people pay attention to him or pass him by, it is all the same to him. My children, there are again people who give great alms, that they may be well thought of. That will not do. These people will reap no fruit from their good works. On the contrary, their alms will turn into sins. We put pride into everything like salt. We like to see that our good works are known. If our virtues are seen, we are pleased. If our faults are perceived, we are sad. I remark that in a great many people, if one says anything to them, it disturbs them, it annoys them. The saints were not like that. They were vexed if their virtues were known, and pleased that their imperfections should be seen. A proud person thinks everything he does is well done. He wants to domineer over all those who have to do with him. He is always right. He always thinks his own opinion better than that of others. That will not do. A humble and well-taught person, if he is asked his opinion, gives it at once, and then lets others speak. Whether they are right or whether they are wrong, he says nothing more. When Saint Aloysius Gonzaga was a student, he never sought to excuse himself when he was reproached with anything. He said what he thought, and troubled himself no further about what others might think. If he was wrong, he was wrong. If he was right, he said to himself, "I have certainly been wrong some other time." My children, the saints were so completely dead to themselves that they cared very little whether others agreed with them. People in the world say, "Oh, the saints were simpletons." Yes, they were simpletons in worldly things, but in the things of God they were very wise. They understood nothing about worldly matters, to be sure, because they thought them of so little importance that they paid no attention to them. We are extraordinarily blind. We must certainly be extraordinarily blind, because when all is said and done, there is not a single person who could say that he is ready to appear before Jesus Christ. Yet, in spite of the fact that we are quite aware of this, there is still not one among us who will take a single step nearer to God. Dear Lord, how blind the sinner is! How pitiable is his lot! My dear children, let us not live like fools any longer, for at the moment when we least expect it, Jesus Christ will knock at our door. How happy then will the person be who has not been waiting until that very moment to prepare himself for him. That is what I wish you to be. Welcome to the Virgo Potens YouTube channel. If you enjoy this video, give it a like. I also invite you to subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss new content. Please prayerfully consider supporting my work by becoming a patron of Virgo Potens on Patreon and/or by buying one of my books. My ebooks are available on Amazon as well as on the Apple Bookstore. For those who prefer a physical copy rather than an ebook, my book, Spiritual Warfare, Know Thy Enemy, is also available as a paperback on Amazon. If you are interested in making a one-time contribution, I suggest that you do so by simply buying one of my books. I am thankful for your support. Links to Patreon and to my books will be posted in the comments section of this video. The continuation of this work isn't possible without you. Lastly, and most importantly, Please pray for me. May the Virgin Most Powerful guide and protect you.